We're here back in the fantasy bar for week 10 of the NFL season. 6 of my favorite plays on FanDuel and DraftKings, including a couple wide receivers in the mid-range, I think are in great spots. We're going to go back to the well on a guy we had last week. Some running backs I think you want to take advantage of, including one in a smash spot, some cheap tight end value for you. And of course, my favorite play of the week. Who are we talking about? Belly up to the fantasy bar and find out. Welcome in, guys. Week 10 edition Beers Daily Fantasy 6-pack. Good to be back here once again in the fantasy bar. 6 guys fresh off the tap for you on FanDuel and DraftKings for this NFL Week 10. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the video. Now, before we get into the plays, as always, please take a second, click the thumbs up button. That's the tip jar here on this free video. Thank you for that. You guys have been doing a great job with that. If you're watching, take that second, click that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. Also, head over to scoresandodds.com/beer. That link in the description of the video. Tons of great sports betting information there. Analytics, trends, ability to compare the odds across all the different books. Parlay IQ is all brand new there, making parlay life a lot easier, and premium picks over there as well from all of your favorite RotoGrinders personality, myself included, giving you a handful of picks each and every week. Those picks been on fire as well. Go and check it out today, scoresandodds.com/beer. All right, let's get into the DFS slate here. Looks like a fun one. Let's start at the wide receiver position with JEUDY of Denver. Now, Denver, we know, been kind of a mess here, but the one shining light here has been JEUDY for this squad. We're talking targets, at least 7 now in each of the last 4 games here. Courtland Sutton squarely in play here as well, but it seems that JEUDY has become the favorite here for Russell Wilson here, averaging over 8 targets per game over the last month or so. This team coming off a bye, should be fresh, should be rested, ready to go here, and not huge in the splits. We don't talk about it a lot here on the show, but found this very interesting. 3 to 4 of his best games have come on the road. 2 of his best games have come over the last couple weeks. Guys averaging 17.5 DraftKings points per game over that time. If we get that at 5,700, we're really loving life. So playable in all formats here. Tournaments, the ceiling is what we're looking for, and I think we can get that against Tennessee. Very vulnerable against the pass, 3rd most fantasy points allowed to this position. Denver passing game in play. JEUDY, my favorite of the bunch. All right, let's go to the running back position. Let's stay in the mid-range with Jeff Wilson Jr. of Miami. Now, really loved what I saw out of Jeff Wilson, coming in very quickly, getting acclimated to the system, to no surprise, very familiar with it from his San Francisco days. And I'm really expecting him to take over as the lead back. As good as Raheem Mostert has been, I think the blueprint for this team, and we saw this before the season even started, was for Chase Edmonds to be the lead back, Raheem Mostert to kind of work in and be that change of pace back that he always was in San Francisco. Did not work out with Edmonds. It thrusts Mostert into that lead back role, but I think you're going to see him take a back seat to Jeff Wilson. And the ownership here, I think people are going to back off. They're not sure what to do. If this is a 50-50 split, why do we want to play these guys? I think this split could get closer to 65-35, 70-30 in favor of Jeff Wilson. We saw him involved in the passing game here. We know the passing game for Miami going to be popular each and every week with good reason. Why not go a different direction here? Cleveland been terrible against running backs, 30th in DVOA against the rush, 5th most fantasy points allowed to this position. I don't hate Mostert either. I think this is a game that could both go nuts here. Wilson's cheaper. Ownership doesn't look bad. Sign me up, Jeff Wilson Jr. this week against this terrible Cleveland Browns run D. All right, let's go to quarterback here. We're going to go back to the well on Trevor Lawrence this week against Kansas City. Now, Lawrence not great last week. He was very efficient. That's what I'll say. I mean, completed almost every pass, gave us over 50 yards on the ground. Just didn't get a ton of touchdowns as Travis Etienne stole the show here once again. I think this is the absolute perfect scenario for us to get a ceiling game out of Trevor Lawrence. If he can bring that same kind of efficiency to this game, they are huge underdogs here, almost 10-point underdogs in Kansas City. So we know they're going to be throwing a ton. He gives us that rushing upside. And Kansas City not been good against the pass, so we could get a potential shootout here. Chiefs 24th in DVOA against the pass this season. And Kansas City has allowed the most touchdown passes to quarterbacks at 17. So at some point, the touchdowns got to go to Trevor Lawrence and his receivers. I think this is the week. Chiefs also 7th most fantasy points allowed to this position. So Lawrence was okay for us last week. I think he has a smash game. I think he has his best game of the season here. Trevor Lawrence, tons of ceiling upside here against the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, to the tight end position next. We promise you some value. Roll with Foster Moreau of the Raiders. Now, we saw this Raiders ship continue to sink like the Titanic. Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow placed on IR here. I think it's good news for Foster Moreau. We know Devontae Adams is going to get his, but I think Moreau could become the second, third target in this passing game, and at a price like $3,200 on DraftKings, $5,200 on FanDuel, exactly what we want. Now, people are going to look at this guy. He's been filling in for Darren Waller. He hasn't done a whole lot here. Well, we clear out some more competition. As bad as Renfrow has been, it's still a guy that was competing with targets. So I think that lack of smash games is going to help us keep the ownership in check here on a cheap tight end. Now, the Colts position they have struggled with. We're talking bottom 10 in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns to the tight end position allowed this season. Raiders healthy 24-point team total here. Sure, Josh Jacobs in a great spot. Let's not forget about Foster Moreau. You need a cheap tight end play here this week against Indy. All right, back to the wide receiver position. One of my favorites. You guys have seen him a few times here. That's the rookie Chris Olave of New Orleans. The targets, the name of the game here. I mean, this guy's averaging 10 targets per game over the last 3 weeks. So getting that wide receiver one volume, the price creeping up a little bit, but we're not paying the obnoxious prices that we pay for some of these wide receiver ones here. Now, we have yet to see a huge, massive game. We've got a lot of consistent game, kind of those 15-ish point games on DraftKings. I think this is a spot where we could see 25, 30 points out of Chris Olave. Why? Pittsburgh's secondary is terrible. They are very, very vulnerable to the deep ball here, giving up a ton of production on those passes here. We know Olave, the air yards king. They love to throw the ball deep to him. So targets should be there. It's a secondary that's beatable, a secondary that's vulnerable against the deep ball, and a secondary that's given up a ton of production, both fantasy points and touchdowns, dead last in all of the NFL. Chris Olave in another good spot here this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for Week 10. Before we do that, let's continue our Beast of the Week contest. Congrats to all of the recent winners. Very easy to play, and this is a thank you to you guys for hanging out here in the Fantasy Bar. All you got to do is get in the comment section right below the video and get fantasy points on DraftKings this week for my favorite play. The closest guess going to win themselves a free week of RotoGrinders Premium. Chance to check everything out behind the scenes. All right, let's wrap this baby up. My favorite play for Week 10. You know I'm as the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. We owe you one more running back here. We're going to continue to smash the same matchup. Saquon Barkley against the Houston Texans, this week's Beast of the Week. So Derrick Henry money for us in this spot last week against this Texans defense, going over 200 yards rushing once again against this Houston team. And I love this spot for Saquon Barkley. Let's look at the matchup. We know Houston is bad. They are historically bad against the run. We're talking dead last in DVOA against the run. We're talking dead last in rushing yards allowed this season. Rushing touchdowns allowed this season, also dead last. And you guessed it, you add it all up. What does that mean? Fantasy points galore, giving up almost 35 fantasy points per week to the running back position here. We know the Giants are going to utilize Saquon Barkley as their main running back. So comes close to that 35 fantasy points. We're loving life here, but Barkley been great, giving us that floor you want in your cash games with those touches, giving us that 30, 35 point upside we're looking for in tournaments. Has hit 18 or more on DraftKings in 6 of his last 8 games. Checks the home favorite box for us here, and coming off the bye week, should be nice and fresh here. A lot of reasons to love Saquon Barkley. Ownership not looking crazy out of control. Smash spot here. Saquon Barkley, easily my favorite play on the board in this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll do it for Week 10 here in the Fantasy Bar. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, hit me up in that comment section right below the video. Don't forget, fantasy points for Saquon Barkley on DraftKings this week for your shot at some free RotoGrinders Premium. Go check out scoresandodds.com/beer. Tons of great information over there. For RotoGrinders.com, I am Beer saying salut, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button if you have not already. Good luck this week, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist.